Hey, Will.
Hey, Russell.
Hey, man.
is Tuesday, February the 26th at 6 p.m. and we'll call to order this meeting of the Murphysboro City Council. As we always do, I'd ask that we would all rise. We have in attendance with us this evening Pastor Troy Humphrey, and we'd invite him to lead us in an invocation.
Pray with me. God, we thank you for our community, and I thank you for the opportunity you give us tonight to serve you and to serve others. And so we want to ask that the meeting that we have, as we talk about concerns for Murphysboro, that it would just be good. We thank you for the service that our men and women give to us and to our community. So tonight we ask this time together is good, and that we are reminded that you give us a purpose in community, and that's for us to take care of one another and to make decisions that are good for each other. And so tonight we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Clerk Hunziker, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Hughes. Alderman Curry-Witzman. Alderman Brown.
Here.
Alderman Voss.
Here.
Alderman McComb.
Here.
Alderman Urbis.
Here.
Alderman Bratton.
Here.
Alderman Bastian.
Here.
Alderman Campos.
Here.
Alderman Pittman.
Here.
Mayor Stevens.
Here. All right, before I get into the consideration of council minutes, I have a special presentation that I want to make. And some of you may notice that we have with us tonight a number of our employees, if not all of them, from the Murphysboro wastewater treatment plant. And I would, at this time, invite them to come up to the front of the council chamber, and including Mr. Stewart, the foreman. And I'd like to present them with a plaque, and for a moment talk about it as well. So the council knows, and I don't know if everybody here in attendance knows, of course, that recently Jim Stewart went up to Springfield. The wastewater treatment plant was once again nominated as one of the best wastewater treatment plants in the state. And, you know that even before I was mayor of the city council, and Mayor Williams worked very hard for years to pay down debt to be able to get to where we are today and to build a new wastewater treatment facility. And so it's something that is being recognized around the state, and their work is. And this is from the Illinois Association of Water Pollution Control Operators to the city of Murphysboro in recognition of nomination by the Illinois EPA for the Illinois Association of Water Pollution Control Operators Plant of the Year Award, 2018 Group 2, given this 13th day of February 2019. I know Jim wanted to make sure that the rest of his crew was here to accept this, and not just him, because I know he talks often about how important it is as a team. So, Jim, do you want to speak to this any?
Just quickly, this is a great honor for the town and these guys. They do a great job down there. This award is not political, and it's not because we have a new sewer plant, nothing. It's based from the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. In whatever region you're in, this award you're granted because of your effluent quality, your monthly reports that they receive. And they also send down a guy or two guys that actually inspect the plant. The thing they were real impressed about with Murphysboro, in this group, in the state of Illinois, we're at about a 1 to 1.5 million gallon a day plant. A lot of your other plants in the state, that's what they get. With the Big Muddy River right by us, we get anywhere from 6 million to 1.5. Since December, we've had anywhere from 4 to 6 million gallon a day coming in. So, with all that said, we're still meeting the quality effluent, meeting the test, and it's a test of the job these guys do. So, I thank them for the city.
Thank you very much, Jim, and thank you to your crew. And I'll hand it over to you, because I'm sure you're going to want to put that up somewhere at the plant for display. Thank you for your right, that takes us into our
Thank you.
regular agenda items. Thank you, guys. Including the consideration of council minutes from February the 12th, 2019. Entertain any questions, amendments to the minutes. I've entertained a motion to approve the minutes. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to consideration of accounts payable registers. I think we had an additional one handed out right before the meeting. Entertain questions on the bills. Mr. Bratton?
I only have two, Gary. On Register 748, page 3, on the first bank card for a safety meeting, and there's one right above that for $175.55 to Sergio's.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, page 3.
Page 3.
The Sergio's is mine. This is what you get when you give the mayor his credit card. I
We can fix that.
once 4 times a year I essentially meet and eat dinner with members from the Chamber of Commerce, essentially just to share information. 1 time a year I feel that I ought to pay the tab out of the 4 times a year that we meet, and so that's what that is.
Okay, what's the safety meeting? Is that, anybody know what that is?
That was for Kroger's, and I think I made chili for the last meeting.
Okay, is that for all the employees or up there or where?
The safety committee.
Okay.
That's what helps keep our, workman's comp going.
I understand that, I understand that. That's all I had.
I entertain a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, that takes us into our regular committee and commission reports. First, we have Budget and Finance chaired by Mr. W.J. Pittman. W.J.?
Thank you, Mayor. We have no items under old business. Under new business, we have financial reports presented by Budget Officer, Mr. Ritter.
Okay, so, it wasn't in your original packet that you had over the weekend, so I passed these out tonight. We should have, my usual report that starts with the, sales tax spreadsheet. Everybody have that? Okay, so, for the first month of 2019, our sales and HR tax, criminal tax, $263,328, so, a little bit down from what this time last year was, but still, not alarmingly so, so, that should be, it's way too early to say how it's gonna be for the year, for the budget, but I mean, we need 4 months to really see anything there, so, but it is down from where it was last year, that's all I have to say about that for now. The income tax is the next page, that was up slightly from this point last year, so, that's a good thing. Of course, again, we have very little control over the income tax, other than, as I say many times, our census numbers, so. So anyway, that's a good start for that tax for the year. The next report is, I'm not sure what order you guys have those in. Okay, yeah. So the salary report is next, and so for the month of January, we budgeted citywide salaries to be $275,945. But for the month is actually $365,238, $89,000 over, but it was a pre-payroll month, so we kinda got that one of the two out of the way early. And, it's still probably too early to infer anything from just that one month, so, as well as some of the overtime hours that are worked in the latter part of, December, are paid in January, so you have a little bit of that as well. Any questions on that one? No? All right, the last one, the inventory kind of pull all the general fund together. So for the month, general fund in total, we spent $456,527. For the same month, we budgeted $428, so we're over. And again, if you're gonna have that high a salary, for that 1 month over budget, of course it's gonna make, your overall look skewed too. So again, for the month, we're in the hole on that, but we have many months to go. So, although we are also, we're under budget in our revenues. We budgeted, 428, and we actually received 400. But again, keep that in mind too, a lot of those don't come in until the last month or two. We have $300,000 or $400,000 of property tax that we don't see until November or December. So that kind of skews that too. So temporarily, we have a deficit in general fund for the month of $55,675. And that's the last report there, so any questions on any of them?
I have a general question, not necessarily about anything on this report, and it's looking 6 years down the road, but at some point, we are going to need to have you and us as a council, or however we want to approach it, look at what a $15 an hour minimum wage is going to do to the city's budget and those increasing costs as they come. I know that, there's not going to be any substantial change till January 1 of next year, and probably that threshold wouldn't impact us too greatly, but it's just something that's been on my mind.
Yeah, eventually, I think that might start being something that we have to look into as we get more into that 10-year phase, or whatever the phase is, 6 years, with this phase in, sure.
I don't have anything else.
No more questions for Mr. Evans. Moving on, next item is status of project reimbursements. Mayor.
I reached out to Ryan Rawson today via text message and did not hear anything back from him, but admittedly I didn't text message him until 4:30 this afternoon. And if I would have reviewed my packet more closely earlier than I did, I would have tried to reach out to him earlier. I know that we want to get reimbursed. I also know the process that we've talked about, and would like to try to let that play out, not much longer, because the taxpayers are owed their money. So it's that's what I know about it.
Anybody have any questions about the? All right, that's the last item under new business. Is there any public comment under budget and finance? No public comment. Let's move out of budget and finance.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pittman. Thank you, Mr. Evans. That takes us to building and grounds, chaired by Mr. Gary McComb. Gary?
Under old business, discussion regarding the sewer line on South 20th. I think everybody get a copy of what Harold wrote up. There were a couple of questions on what you drove up here. The traffic control. You got 10,000. They're going to have to block that street off anyway, ain't that?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's some costs in here that's probably a little heavy, and that's, rightfully so at this point, using an estimate. But yeah, traffic control, I did think about just blocking that street off, and we can reroute traffic, it'll save that money. Bypass pumping, I mean, that's something that the city would want to do, you could eliminate that cost. There are some things in here that certainly, in our time even, what I've got on here is billed hourly rate. I mean, that's, I certainly don't think like for new design in here. Typically on a project like this, we're getting percentage of construction, but in this case, we just bill an hourly rate. So no permit is necessary, so we should be quite a bit cheaper on it too. That's just something we need to work, contractor has to notify all the police and fire, ambulance and all that, if they are gonna block that street down.
You haven't put it out for bid yet, have you?
Yes, it's supposed to be taking bids March 25th at 10 a.m. here.
There's a lot of contractors that do sort of work, I think, are wanting to bid it.
Yeah, and what we've been seeing here recently, they're hungry for work, so hopefully that'll help the price.
I think Billy Knowles is one of them, and Red Dot, and
Sure.
there's a couple more, maybe Dean Bush. Just all talked about bidding it.
Yeah. We'll get some good bids, I hope.
Any questions to,
I don't really have any. I'm just pleased that we're moving forward with this project. I think that there'll be a lot of people very happy to see that stretch of roadway get improved, and it's good we're moving forward with it.
I would hope to have the overlay price next council meeting too. I know that's something somebody, council's gonna wanna look at.
Certainly.
And I know we had the surplus from last year with, I mean, Scott, with this project and then the overlay cost on top of that, and then we're still talking about putting the money, paying the EPA, whatever, wetland cost for that, for the road down to the sewer plant sometime this year probably too, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, are we sitting okay on?
Well, you know, now the overlay is not coming from a different pot than
Right.
the rest of it, so I mean, yeah, I mean, we still have some money in motor fuel. Of course, we still have 7th Street project pending out there. It's not, earmark a lot of that too. We do have money set aside in the water sewer, you know, in the bond reserve, group of funds that, as soon as we know the more certainty on the road to the sewer plant, it'd make me happy, because a lot of these what ifs are out there kind of being juggled around. I like that certainty.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, there's no question that both those projects are gonna take, you know, a lot of cash. There's no question about that.
And I know all of them are essential, you know, it's none of them are ones we can get by without doing, they're gonna be doing.
well, the thing about it, if we get our money back from the motel, that'll pay for this project.
No, that's true too.
Well,
Yeah.
yes and no, I mean,
What-
that's money that we wouldn't, we wouldn't have spent on that if we didn't have to, you know, so that's.
Well,
money-
no, but I mean, it's still
Right.
200 some odd
It would help.
$1,000 down there. If we get it back, we'll pay for this project we're doing there.
I thought it was only 140.
Huh?
I thought it was only 140 down at the motel site.
Danny, they got it in here someplace.
Well, with the labor, it's 157.
Well, it certainly would soften the blow.
Yes, it
Right.
was, yes, point taken, yeah. That's not-
But I mean,
I'm
it-
sorry.
go ahead, Bart.
The ComEd, a thing that's going on down by the river, I know we're paying that up front also. Have we started receiving we have started receiving reimbursement for that? How far behind are they, or are they caught up, or do we have any idea?
Everything's 100% reimbursed. today.
Pardon?
As of today, everything's been reimbursed.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't know if we were still anticipating monies coming from that or not.
Well, and keep in mind too, that they paid a $75,000 permit fee up front before the start, which we got back in November or December.
Yeah,
So that money's in the bank.
okay, thank you.
I got one more thing to bring up, and I brought up before. Like that patch down on South 20th Street that's fell in. I don't think anybody should be able to put the patches in our street till Darren inspects, make sure it's deep enough. And then our sewer taps, when they tear down a house and something, before that tap is complete, I think Tim Lee should inspect it. We're getting people tear down houses. Well, when you turn on Lindell Street, that little house that's set there, there's a pipe in the ground, and that's what it was, a pipe stuck in the ground. The sewer line was left open down there. And we're gonna pay for that someday when the water keeps pushing that mud through it. But to me, we just gotta be a little more stricter on who's working in our town. I know those guys down on 20th Street probably poured that patch the same day they backfilled it. And now we got people going on the left lane of traffic to get around it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dangerous, but I still think we need to adapt a set of rules that Darren inspects them before they patch something like that, and Tim Lee be there when they do the sewer tap.
Darren, you have any thoughts on that?
I'm 100% with him on that. I'm pretty sure they did exactly what he said that day. They made the sewer tap before the concrete tap.
Is there any way we can go back on him, make them fix that?
I'm going to.
Okay, good.
Actually, I held off because of the project.
I know they were trying to do the guy a favor down there, and I think they went to rod the sewer out and lost the head down the sewer line. They had to dig it up and replace it. But if you get in that section of the street, the last two houses on the west side, you can't, if it's raining, you can't walk down that sidewalk because there's an inch or two of mud on it. And people's yards just flow right out into that sidewalk. But I mean, I think have got over the years where we trust the contractors, and I don't think not always they're trustworthy. You know,
I agree.
But when they tear a house down, we should watch them cap that sewer line off in the ground. And when they're gonna, I don't care if it's Ameren or who, when they pour a street back, it's still our street. We should be there to inspect it, make sure it's deep enough. Concrete streets, they can dow them, but on blacktop, it just don't work very well to dow it. I just like to see something drawn up, protect the city.
So in a sense, Gary, you talking about there needs to be a clipboard with a, you know.
Well, when they come in and get a permit, I think Eric should tell them that when they tear down a house, before you do anything, sewer line the ground, Tim Lee has to come and wash the tap. Before you dig up our street and put it back, Darren should be there to inspect it. I mean, it's pretty simple. I just, you know, like down there, we're just lucky we haven't had a wreck down there. Because all the time you'll see somebody go around it. I go around it myself, because you hit it, it's pretty rough.
Yeah.
And that may come out, part of that will come out probably when we put that sewer line in.
Alderman McComb, what do you think about when if they want to come in there and they make the tap, you want to backfill, they just backfill it with flowable fill?
Well, that's like the down
I
there.
mean, I've used that to where, spec by the architect and the engineer, where soil wasn't suitable, we poured a flowable fill in there and then came in, put a footing right on top of it, because it doesn't.
Well, what happens if it has to be dug up again, Danny?
You can dig it right through it with the backhoe.
I don't have a problem with it. I just think we need some specs.
Oh, I agree with you 100%, but I'm just thinking, they're wanting to get in and out in one day, they need to put the flowable fill in there and then come back next day and they pour the concrete cap on it, or blacktop, or whatever, I guess. Whatever you guys come up with on that.
Well, I just know, especially when they're tearing down houses, a lot of times they don't worry about it. They just cut the sewer line in two and they stick a pipe in the ground. That pipe don't go to nothing.
Yep.
The one on Lindell, I drove by one day and it fell over. That's how deep they had it in the ground. But, I mean, we've got good foremans, and I think we just throw the responsibility on them to check these people's work. That's all I had on that.
All right, are we needing any further action? I don't think we are. Are we on 20th Street? I don't think so. I just wanted to make sure of that. All right.
On what Alderman McComb was just talking about, are we just gonna leave that lay there now for another 2 or 3 months, or are we gonna get some kind of an action on it? Because I agree with
on
what
the patch.
On the patch and inspection, I agree with you 100%.
I think they should have to come back and fix it.
No, I'm talking about that also, but I'm talking about the inspections and the backfill and the tap.
Well, I think, Danny, we need to get with Darren and Tim and Mr. Kennedy and draw up some specs on it.
I mean, is that something we need an ordinance for, or is that?
It's there.
It's there. It's already there.
I'll take the blame. I got lax with it. I told that for the first year. And this one, it's gonna go back to cost before they do it.
Okay, good.
I don't blame it all on you either, Eric. I don't wanna get to that, because I drove by that down the other day, they poured it too, and, you know, I've stopped before and argued with the contractors a little bit. But, I mean, it's just something we need to, I brought it up a few months ago. It's just something we need to push, to protect the sewer lines from getting stopped up and the dirt going.
Ms. Hughes?
So we actually have an ordinance, Eric, that states that. Should we pull that out and let us see that next time, just to see if there's, or else have the attorney look at it to see if there's anything that needs to be updated on it?
No, that's not what it is.
I'm
It's just
sorry.
that I have to talk to the contractor.
It's just an enforcement.
They have to call us before they cover up the sewer.
Okay, it's just an enforcement thing, it's not an ordinance thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's all old business, there's no new business. Any public comment on building and ground? And we'll move out of building and ground.
All right, that takes us to community relations chaired by Mr. John Urbans. John?
Thank you, Mayor. Old business consideration of agreement for use of firing range. We have a proposed agreement in the packet.
Mr. Blake? Anything you want to comment on this about?
Well, if everybody has had a chance to review it, it basically, we don't have a set term in it. I'm not sure when the school district or those involved would intend to begin their program. That can be filled in when it is to begin. But, you know, we didn't have it for a certain term. We just put in a provision. It can be terminated by either party on 90 days notice. Just came up with that time frame. It gives the city an out if by chance it doesn't work out the way it's hoped. Or it left it a little longer than what we may normally do, so we could cover hopefully the season for the trap shooting team. There is no rent under it. It's something, the agreement where the city's agreeing to do without paying no rent. The school district or the trap shooting team, however they're being financed, will be responsible for any improvements for their purpose, which that's going to require approval by the city of where that's going to be, what they're going to do. The important things, the city's supposed to be named as additional insured under any insurance. As far as if there are any accidents, if anything happens, there's hold harmless and indemnity provisions in there by the school district to the city. You know, this is a draft that could be presented to the school district for those involved for further input. If there are things that they believe should be in there for their purpose, but you know, this is a draft kind of to get the ball rolling to move forward with that type of agreement if that's what the city council wants to do.
Mr. Bratton?
Is there anything, I didn't see it, and there probably is, Richard, anything in there, provisions that, they take care of cleaning up when they leave?
I don't have that specified just exactly.
I mean, I don't know anything about trap shooting, so I don't know what kind of mess they're gonna make.
Yeah, I think just in general, we could have them abide by range rules between our department
And then are they gonna be wanting to use the inside of the building?
I kinda think they probably will, cause, you know, restroom facilities and things like that, so I'm
Well, I think-
they would want to. And, you know, we do allow these other, concealed carry people to go out there and put classes on, and they pay us a small fee for a registered person.
And I'm not wanting to make money on this, but what I'm saying is that we just paid approximately $60 to have the inside of the facilities cleaned up, so I'm just wondering if we ought to, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we get the funds from, you know, Mr. Winborn and even Officer Bishop and stuff, when they take people out there, that we get, I think it's $10 a person in it's in. So that kinda makes up, I got a $60 check now that just come in a day or two ago, where, Mr. Winborn had his group out there. So that cost is gonna get offset, because that's only gonna be, what was it, 50 or 80 a month? 50, is that right? Yeah, the 250 was that one time
Yeah.
fee thing.
I'm just wondering about, you know, I'm sure that they want to probably use the restroom.
And I think Mr. Strack and his
Yeah.
associates will stay on top of that pretty good for us out there.
Okay.
I think we'd have a good working relationship with that
Okay.
industry group. One of the things that I do see is, you know, the parking lot situation out there, that Darren and I and Tim have met on a couple times already. This spring and the summer, we have no parking lot, you just have the road going up there and that's it. So if they start bringing people in and pulling in the grass that's mud, then we're gonna start having problems. So that's one of the areas this summer we're looking to upgrade and move forward with the parking
One of the other things I wanted to bring up is the fact that I know there's been a number of groups approach the city about the potential of using some of that space to build a solar array to help fuel or provide power to the wastewater treatment plant. And so, although I certainly want to continue to walk forward with this, when I meet with Mr. Strack again, I'm going to see, you know, what their thought process is in terms of their layout. I think I'd like to see them get closer to the tree line and closer down toward the actual building that we use for training and that the shooting range uses. I think that that could perhaps allow them to, you know, coexist with perhaps some other development there that might be possible. So it's just something else that's been proposed for that site, and I want to talk it through with them too, because they had talked about having one house, two houses, or even as many as three. And, you know, that really changes drastically the footprint of how much space they would use. Mr. Voss.
So would the next step be to take this to the school district and let them, do we need to just instruct that occur, or do we need to vote on anything?
Well, I think it would be good. I mean, I've not had a chance to digest this at all, but I think, you know, I trust our legal representation, and I'd say that likely I'm not going to have any issue with it. But yeah, I agree with you, Herb. I think the school district certainly is going to want to take a look at it. Ms.
Before
Hughes.
you turn or give it to the school district, you want to find out if they're even agreeable to moving that area closer to the building and the tree line, if that would disrupt anything, and also if Chief Eleanor have any thoughts on moving where they want to be.
Yeah, they're gonna move down closer to that lead berm right there. The only thing it might do is we'd have to make sure we wouldn't have any scheduling conflicts with our people being there.
Sure.
Because they are gonna be down there closer, nobody be shooting at each other. But I think the way I'd wanna do it, we would definitely wanna just have one or the other there during those times.
Sure.
And should that be included in this agreement that that we can't have more than one group at a time down there?
What we have in the agreement
And I maybe just missed that.
is that it would be at times as are agreed by the city, which would address that issue. And then as far as where they can conduct their activities would be locations on the property as agreed to by the city.
Okay,
We
so
don't
that, all
specify
that is
this.
covered in this thing. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm
So
sorry, I
those
must
would
not
be
have read it
issues
very
that would
carefully.
have to be worked out, but subject to agreement by the city.
Okay, thank you.
And I know that Scott Strack has said that he doesn't think that they would even be ready to move forward for like a year.
Okay.
And so.
It's like next school year
Yeah,
perhaps.
there is some lead time here, and
Okay.
so.
Well, I just wasn't here last time to know
Oh, certainly,
what
yeah.
was
No, it's all
really going on.
legitimate
But thank you
questions.
for verifying that or
Sure.
answering that.
So what's the pleasure? What, send this to the school district? Is that right?
You need a motion on that? I'll make a motion,
I'll
whatever,
second.
whatever we gotta do.
Maybe at this point, it wouldn't seem that we are looking further ahead, maybe it'd just be a motion to send to the school district for
Yeah.
further, for their input and for further action, for final approval.
Is that the motion?
That's my motion,
I knew it
exactly.
was.
I'll second it.
It sounded like your words. Exactly.
Yeah, that's just the way I talk, you
Exactly
know.
like that.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? All right, that passes. New business, requests by Bruise Brothers for street closures on May 31st. There's a letter in our packet. If you have any comments or?
I'm just wanting to host a Relay for Life fundraiser. It's been a few years since we've really done anything with our relay team, and the actual relay is being moved downtown this year to kind of coincide with the cruise night. So everybody's kind of more excited about relay in general this year. This is the one block party that doesn't coincide, the one month that the block party doesn't coincide with the cruise night, so we're gonna have that day open. I've already booked Downstate Music Company for that night. Besides the fact of their sheer size, there's 9 of them. They take up half of my room if I have them inside, and they're also extremely expensive, even though I do get the dollar discount. So I need to have it outside for the room, so I have enough room for people to
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll make a
motion to close street asking questions.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? All right, that passes. Thank you for information. Next, we have discussion regarding farmers market. Not sure what that is.
I wanted to, I've invited Mr. Gary Treader, he's with us this evening. At budget time, I'm sure we all remember that we, talked about the farmer's market and, we decided to cut that line item, which I didn't, certainly I think I understood why. And I think that and a few other things, some interested people have come together and said they want to, some community volunteers to try to reinvigorate the market and bring some more life to it. And so I've met with Gary Treader, Jessica Grammer, although she works for the Jackson County Farm Bureau, she wouldn't be volunteering with this group in that official capacity, but she is one of the members of the group that's coming together to try to do that. And so I wanted to invite Gary here this evening to talk about what it is that they hope to get done.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, everybody, for having me. I've got a piece of paper kind of somewhat outlining what we're going to do. I tried to get this emailed to Will, and I didn't get it done soon enough, so I'm sure it's not in your packet.
It's not.
And that's my fault, because it didn't get here in time. As Will was stating, we're myself, Jessica Grammer, Ashley Glidewell, which is also my sister, are wanting, and some others that are involved in the committee, but not necessarily officially want to consider themselves committee members. Would this table like them as well? All right. We've got quite a few people trying to go together. The local food movement is stronger and stronger all the time. Murphysboro has a lot of interest in local foods, but our market necessarily wasn't viable to get it to them on a consistent basis. We had parking issues for vendors and for consumers. We had issues with, personally, the day of the week and the time of the day. There was a lot of people still at work, and with the people still at work, that also complicated our parking issues around the area where it was at. So what we had proposed was moving it to Saturday morning. Heron Farmers Market had we was proposing multiple different times of the week of trying to figure out what would work the best. And then the week between Christmas and New Year this winter, the Heron Farmers Market dissolved simply because they had a committee that wasn't functioning as a committee. It was functioning as a committee of thinkers and one worker, and that guy got tired of doing that. So at this point in time, when I found out, because we went to the Heron Farmers Market, at the point in time that I found that the Bay was dissolving that market, I got a hold of Will and I got a hold of Jessica, and I said, hey, there's a lot of very legitimate vendors that go to the Heron Farmers Market. Normally, it wasn't a great big market as far as number of vendors, but there was a lot of customers and there was a lot of vendors that showed up with a tremendous amount of inventory. 5 to 7 vendors typically, and 3 to 4 of those vendors have Murphysboro addresses that went over there. And none of us went to the Murphysboro Farmers Market, and we all seen this as a problem. So we are trying to revitalize the market. We met with Will. Like I said, we've got a committee. Myself, Jessica, and Ashley are the 3, main pushers of the committee. Homer and Angela Jenkins have put ideas into it. And we've got a few others, that are involved, but not the face directly involved as far as coming out and visiting with people. The ideas that we've got doing it is to move it to Chestnut Street. Will have expressed that he would like to see it closer to the center of town. With the excitement in the downtown center, and we understood that, and talking about putting it on Chestnut from 8 until noon on Saturday mornings. Then we're not affected with Rachel and Kyle's businesses and Kamari's as far as the time of the day, or courthouse or city administration or any other businesses that are going down during the week. We've got plenty of parking and we're not in anybody's way. We proposed having, and we've we've actually got it set up. We're gonna have Greta Ripperda and maybe a couple of other local musicians coming out and playing instruments just for tips. They're not getting paid anything. We're trying to make sure that we have a vendor that will provide coffee and danishes and any sorts of other things like that for breakfast. We're gonna set up some tables with some umbrellas for the shade, and we're wanting to make it not only a farmer's market, but an actual community event that people are encouraged to go to. You know, we want people talking about it during the week. Well, hey, we'll see you at the market this weekend. And they come to the market and they have their cup of coffee and their donut, visit with their neighbors, and then they shop, and then they go back home, and everybody's thrilled. We really think that Murphysboro has a large enough base of customers that this is doable with the Murphysboro and the surrounding area. And we think that we've got, with the vendors that we have already lined up, we raise beef and pork, and we have our own fresh beef and pork for sale by the package. We've got that, and we also raise vegetables. We have eggs as well. Homer and Angela have a very large selection of vegetables. I mean, they raise vegetables that a lot of people don't even, and myself being one of those many people, I didn't even realize there was that many varieties of green beans. And they have a lot of them. We've got a honey vendor that they have their own hives. They're from Creel Springs, actually. They have their own hive. They make, you can buy comb, you can buy honey, or you can buy actually like a lip balm and a hand cream that they make from their honey. We've got a fresh cut flower farm that's wanting to come in. And I'm drawing a blank. What else we've got? We've talked with a lot of different vendors, but as of now, it seems like we've got at least 4 to 5 very legitimate vendors that is willing to come to our market. It takes vendors to get customers and customers to get vendors. And most of these vendors that we've spoke with, McLaughlin's, they have strawberries and tomatoes. You know, it takes both of those, and we have to have vendors that are willing to give us a commitment and stick it out with us to try to help us build it up. The way we want to do our start for the year is on the 15th of April. We're going to have a meeting among the vendors to determine when we're going to have product ready. You know, the honey people, us, there's certain of us that have product available year-round. There's others of us that, you know, we have product available year-round, but not our entire selection of product. By April the 15th, we'll know then, have we had a cold, wet spring, or are we having an early, warm spring? We'll have a pretty good idea of when the tomatoes and the peppers and the strawberries are going to become available, because what we do not want to do is we don't want to go through with a lot of Facebook promotion. We want to try to get on Channel 3 News in the morning, you know, have the bank signs in town, lots and lots of promotion, and do a lot of talking and get this, try to build some excitement for this, and decide, well, we're going to start on the second Saturday of May. Well, it didn't warm up, and the tomatoes and the strawberries are still blooming on the second Saturday of May. And then people show up, and I'm like, well, you know, what's going on here? You've got a small amount. It's a little different location with a whole lot of talk, but we don't really see much different than what we have seen before. We want to come out of the gate with a big bang. And like I said, we're going to have Greta singing. We're going to try to have some food. We're going to try to do multiple different community events over the course of the summer. You know, some reusable grocery bag promotions, and maybe some recycling promotions, or some food pantry deals. We're going to just try to keep changing enough, have things like that going on. When we're also going to try to control it, I say try, we're going to try very, very hard. We want it to be a true producer's market. We don't want you to be able to go to the farm market and buy the exact same stuff that you can buy at Kroger. It's just somebody unboxed it and resold it. We're going to have a contract and an agreement that the vendors will sign, and they are going to pay a vendor fee every year that proves that they have insurance. And it's going to have stated in there that if there is any, you know, questioning of whether or not they're actually producing their product, or they're just repackaging and remarketing their product, one of our committee members can go to the farm, or, you know, if you're the honey, whatever, you know, what if you want to call that the farm, the honey production facility, you can go there and for proof of production. Because what we don't want is customers to come into the market thinking that they're buying something that was raised locally. And it doesn't have to be raised here in Murphysboro. It can be raised in the county, it can be raised in the next county over. But when you go to the farmer's market, you deserve to talk to the person that was directly involved with the production of what you're buying. not just somebody that ordered a box of tomatoes in from California or Florida. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but you know, I don't need to be selling you guys tomatoes and letting you believe that they were grown within a few miles of where you're purchasing them when they were truly grown on the other side of the country. That's not the point of the farmer's market. With some of the stipulations and all like that and the requirements for insurance, we think that we can guarantee legitimate vendors that are actually providing what the intended purpose of the farmer's market is.
So, basically, what you're requesting from the city is a street closure.
That's it. Yeah, we would like to have a street closure of Chestnut Street right in front of Rachel's place. You're not gonna get too upset with me, are you?
I'll sell coffee on it if you want to.
We wanna close Chestnut, and I'm not in between, the courthouse and Smizer Plaza, right in front of Bruce Brothers, is what we wanna close.
That whole block.
WJ?
Just that main.
I'm not against the street closure at all. I mean, if that's, but would it not work better on the parking lot that we use for like the Apple Festival stage and that kind of? I mean, I know that's a block off of Walnut Street and it's, you know, you won't see it because the old Eagles building is there, but, or whatever it is, but, I mean, that seems like an ideal place for that, you know, what you guys talk about having set up.
Well, that location, you know, it was funny, we discussed lots of different locations, and that one, I don't remember unless I wasn't paying attention at that point in time, that is possible. That one being brought up. I think everybody at the meeting the other night was kind of excited about the whole Chestnut, because you could see Smizer, you could see Bruce Brothers, you could see the courthouse, it was a very picturesque location.
Yeah, and I don't.
Right there in the middle of town.
I don't have an issue with that.
One of the ideas that we've got for, later in the summer is once the vegetables and all are producing well, we've been talking with Sarah at One Hot Cookie about doing a farm market meal and having it a buy ticket meals and have it start at say like a brunch or something, start at 10 and go to like 2. And at that point in time, we're gonna try to utilize either the street or Smizer Plaza or something. We wanna set up tables and have everything that's getting served is from, you can get up after you've had your meal and go to the market and buy everything that you just ate, including the fresh flowers that was table decorations, to take home with you and prepare that to exactly duplicate that meal at home. One of the things that we're talking about doing. The location that you're discussing is more of a big open area, but as far as the, you know, working back and forth on trying to do something like that, I don't know. That might make that a little more challenging.
Mr. Bastian?
No, I was just gonna, if everybody's ready, I was just gonna make a motion if we're ready.
I would love to second that one.
Well, I
have one question, I'm sorry.
Ms. Hughes.
The vendor fee of $75 or 3 times 30, will that pay for everything you need to have? I mean, is that gonna make this self-sufficient or self-funded, or
Yes,
how
for the most
are
part.
you doing donation kind of things
Well,
also?
you know, who turns down a donation? You know,
Well, yeah.
Obviously, we'll take donations if we can get them, no matter where they come from. But in all honesty, we're hoping, there's a couple of reasons that we're doing the upfront. It's less clerical work for
Oh, yeah,
the,
obviously,
for
yeah.
the committee, instead of collecting at every market. And then
Mhm.
2, if we want to purchase some signage, we've got some monies up front that we can do that. We don't just have to wait until next year after we go all the way
And so I
through this
wondered
year's
if
season.
this is gonna be enough to fund what you need.
Yeah, and we really don't need much.
Yeah.
You know, we really don't need anything. And as, you know, as time goes through, if we can collect up some tables, or if we do get some money from an outside source or what have you, sure, we can put some tables, some umbrellas out there to make it a little more environmental, which is the plan eventually. It's, you know, it's a work in progress. And like I said, we've got, 5 to 7 vendors basically committed at this point in time. We've got a lot of other people that've shown some interest. We've had quite a few people get a hold of us, a lot of times on our personal pages or whatever, and, hey, we've heard you guys are starting this, let us know what do we gotta do. We're putting together the agreement. I was actually, my wife had a test at the hospital today, and I was sitting in the waiting room for 2 hours, so I was working on typing up that application and agreement while I was there, so I hope to have that done within the next day or two, to where we can actually start getting that out.
Mr. Voss?
Yeah, just quickly, just a thought. You know, Carbondale's going on at the same time, and some folks might think that would discourage you from doing it, but I would think just the opposite. In events that I posted at my employer, when there's things going on in town, it really could then be, come to Jackson County and come to our farmers markets, you know, and so marketing it out to Union County and to Williamson County and things, and just encouraging people to kind of make a day of it, you know, go there, come here. It's not an either-or transaction at all with something like this. It sounds like an excellent idea, and I think it'd be terrific.
I did have a question about the street closures, time-wise, because that's, cruise nights would be the first Saturday, right? So.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, there could be some overlapping organizations. What kind of area also, but, you know, we did a few of those in the last couple meetings.
When do we close for the cruise nights, like 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock?
Right now, what the time frames are.
Karen?
We put the barricades down on Friday, and they set them up, Josh Sayer and his crew do something.
I mean, I think sometimes they have cars showing up at 2 or 3.
Yeah, that's what like it is.
But that's, I mean, they're till noon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll be
You know
gone
you're
by
gonna be out of
1 at the
there.
latest.
Yeah.
There should not be a conflict.
You-
There should not be a conflict.
Okay, I can remember.
All right, well, we had a motion and a second, I think, already on the floor here.
Right. Any other discussion? I mean, most of the issues really don't pertain to the city. It's just whether you guys can make it or not. But most of the issues we've sort of talked about is really more towards whether you guys make it or not so much the city being involved in any of that, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but, you know, we're not really, other than the, you know, allowing us to, or closing the street for us, that's really the only thing we're asking for.
Right.
We're just, wanting, you know, mayor asked us to come, and, one of us or a couple of us to come and extend to the council what it is that we was trying to do and what we were trying to accomplish, and, try to show you all that we do have a plan. Like I told him, I said, you know, nobody can guarantee and promise that a new adventure is going to succeed, but what I can promise is that we're trying very hard to make sure that it does.
Well, it sounds like a good opportunity. So there's a motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No?
Best of luck.
Yeah.
Best of luck.
And that was
Thanks for
Mike
coming.
and, Mike
Gloria.
and Gloria.
Gloria.
Okay, just wanna make sure I had it right.
Any public comment on community relations? Not, we can move on to public improvement.
Thank you, Mr. Irvis. That takes us to public improvement, chaired by Mr. Mike Bastian. Mike?
We have 3 items under old business. The first one is the property at 102 North 10th Street. As you all know, Mr. Murphy was here at the last council meeting. He indicated that he is now the owner. He was waiting on his grandfather's estate to be settled, and he said it is up to code with electrical. I don't know if Eric.
Outside.
He said that the window was, had been boarded up. I went by and looked.
Yeah, he did that.
Okay. And he said that it was up to code by the electrical. So
The outside is, that's all I've seen.
that's all you've seen. Could you follow up on that for us?
I'll ask him.
And see what's going on?
He didn't stop, pay attention to anything I've said to him. We'll see.
So, if I understand this right, we boarded the window. Did we bill him for that?
I assume she has.
Okay, that's fine.
And from what he said, technically, he wasn't the owner before, right? I mean, they were the ones that operated down there, but I mean,
He came.
you're not the owner,
He
you're
was
not the
always
owner.
the one that came and talked to me for years.
Yeah, I mean, I know they've been, him and his dad have been using that building for a while.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely, but he was the one always coming forward talking to me about it. And slacked off with the years.
Does anybody have any questions about that particular property? Okay, the next one at the last meeting, after we discussed 102 North 10th Street, Alderman McComb brought up the Laclede Hotel and the Old Depot and said that there should be further discussion on that. So I do know that Martin is here, the owner of the Old Depot, and I do know that Danny Bost had submitted a letter to us. I don't know if everybody had a chance to review it. So I guess with that being said, Martin, would you like to fill us in as to the status of your building and what's going on?
No, I would like to see what is Macomb, what is your legal thing you want to do. I would like to show the person around instead.
Yeah, I just wonder why the roof hadn't been put on it, was my question. Most people do the inside of a building, put windows in and put a roof on it first.
Yeah, I know, I agree. But it's
But
like everything I do in
my-
this town, I feel like you guys are on me as a hawk. And I feel like I getting more, you against me more than other people in this town. And
If you-
I really don't understand why you don't come to me sometimes.
If you remember, I'm the only one who voted not to tear the thing down. So I ain't been the one hawking you.
No, but that's fine. I mean, I just feel like.
I just like to see the roof put on it.
Yeah.
I know you work by yourself and wanna do things your way, it takes a little longer, but it's been several years and the Murphy boy had just inherited that building and the council's on him. And we haven't said anything to you for a long time about your building. Or the Laclede, I'd like to see the Laclede inspected by our code enforcement officer to see that everything Mr. Boss said had been done has been done. You know, we're just trying to light a little fire under you to get a little more done.
No, that's fine. I mean, and that's fine. I mean, for me, it's just, I mean, I bought a property on 14th Street, and I got into an argument with the mayor about it. And I just don't understand, like, the first thing the mayor said is like, Martin, we would like to just finish some of your projects. My first response was to Steve was, I finished more projects since the mayor has started. I mean, and I do the best I can. But I just feel like I own that building on 14th Street. For a year, I owned that building. I only used 35 feet in the back of that building because I was landlocked. Because I bought another building that I've been sitting for 20 years. Just in steel. I put $4,000 just in steel in that building. And another guy bought it, had it for a year, and he banned it. He don't want to deal with the building. So I was working on that, and I was not even done cutting holes in it, and you guys get fining me for having bricks outside. I still have scaffolds up, we cutting holes in it. And right now there's 3 brand new garage doors on the building. The other building I bought that house from a lady that was 2 years behind in taxes on that building. I paid what she asked for the house, that was fair, and I said I would also pay the back taxes. And the house, for me, is just in the way. So for the neighbors, I'm gonna take it down. And the lady next door, I told her about it. And I told her too, I said, it's gonna be grass and you can use it. I don't want it. I just need 35 feet in the back so I can get my equipment into that building. And I just feel like, on the same time, on the same street, I have 2 buildings that is boarded up, that is collapsing. The 2 old brewery buildings down there. Why are you guys not on them? Because actually, I now bought the building across the street where I'm gonna move my other things in and rent the other one out. And that 2 old brewery buildings that are sitting down there behind like the plumbing supply house are collapsing. People are in there doing bad things. And it's the same owner that happened for 20 years. Why are you guys not on getting that ripped down? Because I'm doing my thing right now. I mean, I cut all the trees down on that property I bought, and I'm knocking the house down. But on the same time, can you guys do me a favor or something? Take that 2 old houses down because I'm trying to clean that neighborhood up. But nobody, I mean, why are you guys not ripping them down? They've been sitting there, they're bought up, they're falling apart, they're collapsing. And I just don't understand that. I mean, what was it, like 2 months ago, I got a police officer called me about I'm blocking the alley. He was apologizing. The guy, he's a nice guy, he knows me by name. He's like, Martin, I'm sorry, but you're blocking the alley. I was like, what alley am I blocking? Because I already moved up to another building of mine. It was behind my own shop, behind Pizza Hut. 11 o'clock, I got a complaint from a city enforcer about I'm blocking the alley behind my own building. I mean, I'm just saying, what is it getting to? I mean, I cannot even freaking unload in my own property without I'm getting the cops to call. I mean, I just feel like that is like the thing about it.
If you were parked in the alley, that's not your property. I don't know anything about that. Molly owes.
It's 11 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm unloading to my own shop. Humps is not complaining.
The old depot sits on Walnut. Everybody drives by it that comes through town every day.
I'm talking about my shop next to Pizza Hut.
Well, that isn't even on here. I'm just talking
No, but I'm
about
just
what's
saying, I
on
just don't
here.
understand it. I mean, I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm ripping down a house that was 2 years behind in taxes, and the lady could not move out. I'm moving out, I'm bulldozing the house down, but the house is secondary for me to save the building I bought on another property. Where I just, we should drive by, there's 3 brand new doors in them, and we're top coating the whole place on the inside.
Mr. Voss?
So a couple years ago, I was sitting right here, and you were sitting right there, and you explained your plans for the building. Subsequently, very little has happened that we noticed. So I don't. We're just simply asking what's going on, Mr. Shalomos. We're just simply asking what's up with the old depot. It's an iconic landmark within the community. And so we're just asking what's going on. I don't feel as though that we're badgering you or that we're relentlessly asking you. It's been 2 years since you sat in that chair and told us what your plans were for that building. Subsequently, very little has happened besides external things. We're just asking what's going on with it. We're not badgering you in any way.
Because I heard the word legal actions. So I mean, that was the thing for me. It's like, that was the thing. For me, it's not about asking. Every time you ask me, you drag me to court. Nobody comes to me. You have never called me in the 2 years. So every time you want to talk to me, you do it through legal action. You're spending money on a city attorney. And my thing is, I'm to the point where I just don't feel like telling you guys. I mean, I met with Ed Helen months ago about that building. And that's my thing. I mean, I met him months ago, and actually I went over to I'm working a project with the SIU about like a thing for that building, and I got a guy that's gonna come into that building, but I don't tell you.
Well, we understand you have a number of projects that are going on, and that's very I don't know, admirable. Is that what you're looking for?
No,
yes, you're working on a number of projects all over town. We're interested in what's going on with the old depot, and that's all we're asking.
I said to you, I met with Ed Heller about the legal thing for the old depot, and I met with SIU. They have the planning over there. Is doing a planning for it because the bank wanted me to make that. And I said, I have a guy that's going to come in and run the place that has a restaurant on the opposite side of Marion that's going to move his restaurant in here. So it was not a noble thing about other things. What I said to you, it was like all the things I'm doing right now is for that building up there. I did not just run down and tell you that. You're going to come and ask me. But every time you ask me, you freaking want to involve an attorney. Every time you want to talk to me, you slap me with a lawsuit. You find me for everything I'm trying to fix up here. Bricks on a building, I have the scaffolds up. Now as you drive by the building, it looks 10 times better. We've got doors put in. I mean, I just don't understand why you guys just don't come to me.
Well, actually, if we rewind,
my money here, I'm in St. Louis every day. I drive up there, I drive home here.
If we rewind a couple of years ago, the reason that we compelled you to come in and the reason that we had to take the extraordinary steps that we did was repeated requests for you to take down scaffold that was a public hazard, that was every day putting our citizens in danger, and repeated requests for you to deal with that were ignored. And so we had to take the extraordinary steps that we did, and we had a full house here, and we had dozens of community citizens that were emphatic and volunteered to assist you in continuing that process. And so we backed away from that because you addressed this council and said that these things were going to happen in months, not years, in months. And so nothing has happened in that timeline that's visible to us. And so we're just asking what's going on with it. We're not taking you to court to ask you that question. We're asking what's going on with the old depot.
What is going on? It's just like I said, I have met with my attorney, I met with SIU, I'm in the middle of things.
Thanks for the update.
No problem. But I got a couple of more things. In front of my wife's office, can we replace the asphalt sidewalk out there on the opposite side of Liberty? Down, I talked to like Ben Akron, and he's fine with it, we gotta take care of it. Replace the sidewalk and make it replace up to the corner. And we make the same thing where we have flowers on the front. I mean, I'll pay for the flowers. But I just feel like I would like to have that sidewalk done on that concrete program. Cause it's just, there's holes in it. I mean, there used to be a garbage can that's not there anymore. I mean, there's holes and it looks bad, and I think it's a main street, so I think that would look nice and it would match the opposite side of, I mean, the Liberty Feeder would stand out more in the middle.
Martin, you want me and you to get together and just meet up there and you can kind of show me what conceptually you're thinking about?
That'll be great.
Yeah, I'd be willing to do that.
And I got one more thing. We used to have an X-rated store on Main Street, what do you call it, dollar store? There was one time up there. Can we have some kind of ordinance saying that every store that have to be on Main Street have to be kid friendly? So nobody ever get that idea again, because we got my parents that don't come and visit when that thing was there.
Do what now? I didn't understand you, Martin.
No, it's just, there was an X-rated store on Main Street, and they were gonna pass an ordinance saying you can only have kid friendly stores on Main Street. I just don't want that to happen ever again.
Yeah.
I think that was
I
pretty.
remember when that was up there.
It was pretty bad, I think.
Rachel's house. She
lived
wasn't,
there
she
now.
wasn't there then.
I remember that, I forgot about it. That's where the beauty shop was.
I live there.
Oh, you live there actually? Okay.
Hey, does,
I was just saying, I mean, go up past some ordinance.
Was that your story?
Kid friendly, I'm just saying, now that I'm here, I mean.
well, we could add that to the, agenda for consideration, and I don't know what's doable or not doable under today's, societal standards, but,
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Mr. Bratton?
Martin, I have one question, and I do call you when I have a question for you. What's the status on, I see you've got the windows out on the house down on South 14th Street. Do you have any kind of a time frame?
Todd broke his, the guy, Todd who goes to church with.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on crutches right now. He twisted his ankle. I'm just waiting for him to be better.
Yeah, I noticed you got the windows and doors all out.
Yeah, we took the windows out,
Look,
we took the new furnace out, there was a brand new furnace.
yeah, looks like it's ready to go, so.
Yeah, we just gonna lay it down, and I'm gonna flatten it as a pancake and just put grass there and let the neighbor use it.
Good.
Like I said, I don't need that at all.
No, I understand. I understand why you bought it, because you need it for an entrance into your other building, yeah. Thank you.
And I bought the building across the street.
Oh, you did, across
You
from the
have
one?
what, the old brewery building?
Hmm?
The old brewery building?
Yeah.
Good.
I finally got that. I've been fighting with the guy for a long time.
That's the one you moved out of because he wanted 10 cities for it. Yeah.
So we finally got that, and we're gonna, so I was gonna use it for kids soccer, but I'm gonna wait for that, finish on one other project first. I bought it for soccer and baseball. But my wife said I should wait. So I'm moving my things in there, the other building across the street I'm renting out. And I blocked all the windows out of it, as you can see. And we're gonna put old brewery signs up. Chris Jago made some old brewery signs to, like we did at the old depot with that thing, we're gonna put that on, so it looks nicer in the neighborhood. And I cut all the trees down, cause there's so much pine over there, I'm taking it out of, so I won't be able to see it.
Thank you.
Martin, if I just could ask, are you concerned about the roof on the old depot? I mean, I haven't looked at it closely, but there are some holes in it that I can see.
It is. I mean, I have not done anything because I needed to find a guy that can run it for me. But I would like to have it, I would like to have a vision of what I want, but I don't have any intention of running the place. It's not my area. And I mean, so if I find a guy that's gonna be half partner.
But,
He don't wanna own the building, he wants to run it,
and
I'm
I-
in the middle of, like I said, I met with my attorney last month, and I met with SIU, they're making a business plan, and I met with the bank a couple of months ago, and so we're gonna put it on. I mean,
I'm just asking, though, specifically, I mean, are you concerned about the roof structure itself?
no, not the structure itself, I mean, the shingles, I mean, not the roof itself, I mean, the trusses are fine, I mean, I'm gonna put new, like, underlayment, I mean, like a new decking on it, I mean, I knew that when I started, it was garbage. So, I mean, I'm not worried about it's gonna fall down tomorrow.
Okay.
But I mean, so, I mean, we finished the inside, the structural thing. For me, I needed to find somebody before I come 200 miles into that building and get it going.
Yeah.
I mean, I need somebody that can, the guy I bought it with, bailed out, and so I could not really, but I found a guy now, a good friend of mine that has a restaurant for 20-some years.
But-
the town is getting smaller and smaller.
Well, yeah, I know that. But, you know, look, most of this, Martin, comes from the fact that the position we're in, it is a high visibility building, and residents ask us about it, because a lot of people in the community have fond memories of the building. And, you know, I'm not a structural engineer, most of them aren't either, and they ask us what's going on with it. So I hope you understand that, you know, the questions that we have aren't just necessarily motivated by the mayor or the city council wanting to jump your case. You know, it's just sort of a circular thing where citizens ask us questions, and then it's our job to ask those other questions that they're being asked of us.
No, I understand that, but at the same time, I also feel like, I mean, if you look at, that building, our building has been sitting for, and I needed that because that's how I run my business. I needed to put things in it. I lost the building across the street, so I bought this one over here, cut in the doors. I mean, I was not even done putting the steel in. And I get complaints about my brick. I mean, it's just constantly, I do like that with everybody else. I mean, I cannot even park behind my workshop next to Pizza Hut. And Hummus were laughing, because I was like, Hummus. I mean, he's like, I was just telling him to move the friggin' van. I mean, at 11 o'clock, I get a call about that. I'm just like, it's just like, I cannot even unload in my own shop. I mean, up here, that building, I said, that was overgrown with vines. There was not even, you cannot even get into the building. And I'm starting to tear into it and dig into it, and another guy gave up and sold it to me for nothing, because he don't want to deal with it. And I'm trying to fix it up, I'm cutting everything out up there. I mean, I'm trying to change that neighborhood. I chased people down in that neighborhood across the street because they were stealing constantly. You do not even keep tools in it. I mean, I'm just like, I've tried. I mean, that's my business. And I just feel like everything I do, you have to understand too, it's like, every time, I do something, you guys are on me. And I know the old people, but like I said, and I'm on the old people now.
You and I have had enough screaming matches to understand that we both care about the community. Passionately. I see it one way, you see it another, but in some aspects. But regardless of that, I appreciate you being here, and I don't want to continue to dominate the conversation, but does anybody else have anything, Mr. Bastian?
Yeah, with that being said, we can just keep it on the radar and keep it on the agenda, and if we have questions, I encourage all the aldermen to reach out directly to Martin. Maybe Martin, in a month or so, maybe you could come back and we'll put it on the agenda and you could give us an update.
Yeah, like I said, I'm seriously working with business planning, with going to the bank, I told them, literally, we have a business planning, that's not my area, so if they want me to work with SIU.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
What are we gonna do on the Laclede?
Huh?
What are we doing on the Laclede?
That's where I'm getting ready to go, yeah. The Laclede Hotel, Danny Vost is not here this evening. He did submit a letter that was given to all the aldermen tonight. So I would suggest all the aldermen take their time and read his response, and then we'll put that on the next meeting agenda, if Sandra could do that. It's really new business. I got a call or a text from, my seatmate here. Property at 1111 North 19th Street. Could you give us maybe an update on that?
I just found out about it.
It's really bad. I drove down
I
there to
went
see
by,
it.
yesterday. And I didn't know that big holes in the side of it.
Yeah, it's for, you don't know, it's Flowers, I guess it's Flowers Trucking or
It's
who?
Old Cox's building.
It's Old Cox's, but it
Yeah,
says
the
Flowers
one that's on
Trucking.
the 19th Street side.
Oh, okay. Anyway, the side of the building's falling in, the garage door's falling off, there's junk sitting all over it. It really does look bad, so I do thank you for bringing that to our
Oh,
attention.
you're welcome. I want your ward to look nice
Yeah.
as mine.
But anyway, if you could let us know what's going on or take a look at that, and we'll put that on the
That's easy.
agenda for the next meeting as well.
It looks like it could have been wind damage from the windstorm the other night too. I'm not
No,
sure.
it's been there
Oh, I
longer
don't
than
think
that.
Yeah,
so.
been there for a while.
It's been there
like
for
that.
a lot longer than that.
Okay.
I took a good look at it. I don't think it was from the other night.
Is it the old office building or the big garage?
Looks like the big
The big
garage from the
garage.
photos.
Yes.
I
I
can
have
show
a-
you the pictures.
I had a question on that building also, or just just north of that, there's a bunch of old, I wanna say, it appears to be like older cars that are wrecked or this and that stuff.
They're fenced in, but you can see.
They're fenced in, but I thought we had some kind of an ordinance, or there was an ordinance that you had to be able to block the view from the public on that. Maybe.
Industrial area.
Huh?
Industrial area.
And it's residential.
It's supposed to be screened. Should be screened, not be just about bushes or trees or something on it.
Isn't that the same boy Eric that moved from South 17th?
Cripps Junior.
Yeah, when he was
Yeah, I
down there
wanna say
by
this one we had.
Blankenship's building,
Yeah, well.
by the Quonset hut there.
Yeah, he owned that, but there's been somebody else that lived in there and just drug stuff up. It wasn't him, it was actually the relative.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
So I understand it is supposed to be out of sight or out of view or whatever?
Sure.
Well, would you mind addressing that while you're addressing it on the other? You probably got it wrote down. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Well, Sandra, if you could put both of those items on the agenda for the next meeting, I'd appreciate that. Do we have any further comment from the alderman?
I want to sing one more verse to the song. Mr. Beckman's lot there by 17th Street, although it's not really a building, I assume it's still owned by somebody who I just have always known as Old Man Beckman. At least that's what I hear everybody on the council call him.
Herb.
Norm. So the sort of roof type structure over the top of that is all but gone, and I would, talk about making things to where, we really need to have him put some slats or something in that fencing so that the folks going to 17th Street don't, the lawnmower graveyard's been there for quite some time.
30 plus.
And, honestly, as residents, I walk by it, I don't even think about it. But, people from out of town that walk by there on the way into our, nationally known restaurant, it presents something that's not really, it's unsightly, so that's something else I think we ought to address. That's all I have.
And while we're talking fences, how about that fenced-in area on Walnut Street, right beside the building by 17th Street where their new building's going up? We had that empty lot where they had all the yard sales. That fence is not covered up.
Oh, the fence is for industrial area. That's a business area.
But I'm just saying if we're, I think
yeah, so it should be
for appearance, it's just like he said, walking to 17th Street by Mr. Beckman's, it's the same appearance, so I don't know why we couldn't try to.
That's where you want me to head though. You're talking about Wisely?
Wisely, yeah.
So you're gonna poke that bear, we better have some legal.
I wasn't gonna mention any names.
I was thinking more of a beehive than a bear, but.
That's why I said what I did. Keep that one.
Okay, let's move forward, but we'll talk about that later. Don't shake your head no.
He gets her name spelled right.
Okay, do we have any further comment from public comment? With that being closed, I'll close public improvement.
Thank you, Mr. Bastia. That takes us to Public Works, chaired by Mr. Dan Bratton. Dan?
Okay, old business. Consideration of groundwater ordinance for the general area of 20th Street and Walnut. I think everybody's got a copy of that. Richard, I guess you've got everything in there that we need. It's all covered and taken care of, or?
Yes, I think that this ordinance is fine there. I think this ordinance is fine there. We did some cleaning up the language and finalizing the draft that it provided of it.
Okay. Do we need to have a motion to accept this?
I'll make a motion.
Got a motion by
Second.
Alderman McComb.
Second.
Second by Alderman Urbis. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Discussion and update of flooding issue and legal action. I don't know exactly what that is, so somebody help me.
At the last meeting, I brought up again the issue that we have with a property owner north of town who has been unwilling to let the city cross or access their property so we can maintenance a culvert that exists underneath the railroad track. And, we actually had some residents here who were impacted by the flooding recently, and it just sort of brought it into our attention again. And so I brought up to the city attorney the idea of using eminent domain process in order to force the access to that issue so that we can get it solved. And I just it was on the agenda, and I thought we might get an update on that from our city attorney.
As we've discussed in previous meetings, the city does have eminent domain authority to go outside of the city limits when it's matters that affect drainage inside of the city. What will be our first step in moving forward if we are going to proceed with an eminent domain action will be determining just exactly what land we need to take. If we are going to need a legal description prepared, exactly what it is. That's step number one. We're going to have to know the exact land involved. We have to identify all interested parties in the land. We want to do a title search. We're going to need an appraisal of the land. In the eminent domain process, part of it is the city pays just compensation for the land. First, the city will have to make a good faith effort to buy the land from the person, at least make the offer, and offer to pay what's going to be determined to be fair market value for the property. I don't know if we're just going to need to actually take the land or just acquire an easement for it, for the city's purpose. We don't necessarily have to acquire the land itself in the city's name. We could, if an easement's going to be sufficient, we could use eminent domain to acquire an easement over that property.
Go ahead, Gary.
I think that Will had met with one of the landowners out there, and he asked a ridiculous amount for what we're wanting. All we're gonna do is clean the creek out so the water gets away from the city quicker. And now I don't know, is he on both sides of that creek, Will, or do you know where it starts on the other side of the railroad?
I should know that, Gary, but I don't know it 100%. I know obviously he owns to the north side of it, but I would have to go back and look and see. I think the south side is the school district. I'd welcome any help from anybody here that might recall or know. I'd just have to look, double check.
I think I still got a tape of the aerial was done with a Mr. Tincher to show the property and how it's got that stopped up, why the water's not getting away from the city. And the other part of that, the railroad trestle there is almost need to be bored under if we get the other side cleaned out. I'm not talking about boring a big pipe under it, but I think it needs to be determined by somebody else how big a pipe we need to put on that to get a little more drainage out of there.
I would say that in my previous discussions with the property owner, I had our engineers draw up a couple of different options that I presented. And, one of them was just essentially a long, narrow strip behind the canning auction where we could cross their property and then use a strip to access the back. So I don't think that we would need a large amount of easement or property to do what we need to do. And so I can review my records and pull those out. It wouldn't be a legal description, I don't think, Harold, because those were just sort of, I'm not sure how you created those drawings, but they certainly did show acreages.
Yeah, there was one, I know one of the options was a retention basin on that side also.
Okay.
But, I mean, the biggest problem is lowering the culvert and railroad tracks. Yeah.
If I remember correctly, didn't you have, a couple of different options on that, what we could do?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, this goes back to a grant that was actually returned the money in because we couldn't access that side.
Mr. Pittman?
I guess the talk of this culvert, started before my time on the council. I mean, that's how long we've been talking about that being an issue. The way we're talking about it, I picture it as some, drain plug at the bottom of the ocean that's gonna suck all the water out of Murphysboro. So it's hard it is hard for me to picture that one culvert, and I'm sure the drainage maps have been done, you know, is affecting hundreds, if not, you know, more than 1,000 people, and that whole, cause we've had people from, you know, 7th Street, you know, all the way over there, all the way to Roberta Drive, you know, that section, and that seemed, and that is what's affecting that whole area. I mean, there's that creek that runs through there, I know
There's
that.
two things. One, it's 2 feet higher than it should be, so therefore it's backing 2 feet of water all the way up
Right.
down. But the other is that the new pipe under there would be probably about the same size, so you're getting twice the drainage.
I mean, at some point, like, does it back up enough to where it does run out of there? Like, if
No,
it backs up
It
to?
would create some head pressure, but it's not enough
really.
to make that much difference.
Mr. McComb.
Harold, don't that water drain all the way to the blacktop?
Yeah.
That goes right through on out just past the school on that low area. It drains out that way. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, to get the water away. It's not like the property owner said he don't want that water on him. It's not gonna stay on him when we get it cleaned out. It is gonna go just like Big Muddy going to Mississippi. I mean, once you get a path, the Mississippi's dropping, the Big Muddy heads down. That's what we're trying to do out there.
Right.
And
Once that's running correctly through there, are we gonna have to do any maintenance along the rest of that creek that runs through there to, you know, I mean, that's potential, right?
Through his property, yes. I mean, I honestly haven't even looked that far down.
I'm just making sure if we're gonna go through, use eminent domain process to get easements on, to go across this property, do we wanna work on easements throughout that whole area of where, you know, so we can do it all at one time and get.
Well, it would be nice to have Mark fly the whole thing from the bite off to Ava Blacktop. And then you can see everything in that, where it stopped up. Just set aside the railroad overpass. There's trees in it and everything else. I mean, it's just, it keeps the water from going out. And when it don't go out, that's why the high school road gets underwater and the people on 16th Street get flooded. And just like this lady had that problem the other day, I don't think it will completely clear it, but it's gonna help.
One hot cookie also that goes to 7th.
It does affect her, Gary, because it goes down 7th Street there.
Basically, everything flows to that point in the northern edge of town. Mr. Mills.
I hate to bring this up, but I do drive home Harrison quite a bit. And there's most of the time whenever we're backed up in town.
That
the
creek's
water's-
flooded too.
It's backed up, maybe 7 or 8 feet deep
So
there.
if we pile
Which is
water on
telling me
top
there's-
of that.
There's more problems on to the north of that.
Right,
getting to
which is in county, which we don't have, you know, which we, I guess we would have eminent domain authority if it's out of town, you said, if it's affecting drainage. But yeah, that whole area by Harrison where that creek runs through is a wetland, you know, half the time anyway, especially when water's high. And that's past where we're talking about.
Mr. Bratton.
Okay, when will Mr. Tincher be off of work comp and back to work?
He gave me an update a couple days ago. He had a doctor's appointment Friday, haven't heard back from him. He seen me on Wednesday or Thursday, thought he was gonna have to have surgery now. They put him in rehab for a while, the last month and a half or so, to see how it would go. That's where he's thinking it's headed, but I haven't heard back from him.
Well, I don't know about the legality and the smartness of using Mr. Tincher, by golly, to video that again when he's off on work comp right now. I don't think that, our attorney can tell us, but I don't think that smells very good to me.
Well, we might want to be, you know, sort of stymie that general conversation in an open meeting concerning Mr.
Can I
Tincher.
go back to the floor?
But I do think that we do need to do something on this. I know the street departments went out there and tore out that beaver dam 2 or 3 times, and then the last time, they actually spent, what, 3 or 4 or 5 days out there in boats to get it tore out. That's the reason that Darren wasn't here that one meeting when we had a couple of questions, because they were still working, just got off work. But we do need to do something.
All right, well, this is what I would like to ask the council to allow me to do. If the council generally feels like this is a worthwhile action to take, I would like to try to meet with the property owner one more time, essentially with the ability to express to him that this is where this is heading. And so, you know, would you please be willing to work with us on some sort of an easement before we and you have to go through some sort of protracted process? And then if he, you know, objects to that, then we can move forward with further conversation about it.
That was going to be my point, you know, we know what is the issue, where part of the problem is located, and then we need to solve that because there are too many families affected by that. So, you know, we need to move. It has been 2 years seeing these problems, houses flooded, and, you know, no, it's just not acceptable not to act anymore.
Okay, what's the pleasure on the council?
I'd make that motion to let Will.
Okay, we got a motion to have the mayor try to negotiate one more
I
time in good
second.
faith.
Yes.
We got a second by Gloria. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. There's nothing under new business. Any public comment? We're out of public works.
Thank you, Mr. Bratton. That takes us to public safety, chaired by Mr. Russell Brown. Russell?
Okay, on the public safety, we don't have any old business, no new business.
No, you got it made, though.
Uh-huh.
You got it made.
Yeah. Any public comment? If not, we come out of public safety.
All right, that takes us to personnel, chaired by Ms. Barbara Hughes.
Okay, in personnel, I don't have any old business listed. Informational-wise, Sandra and I have been working on revising the personnel policy that has not been revised since February 9th, 1999. It's only a little bit outdated. Anyway, but some things have come to light recently about sick leave. And in your packet, you received a, well, it's more than a draft, actually. It's a recommendation that we change our personnel policy to this sick leave policy. If you had time to look at it, and I don't know if any of you have the old policies or not, but there are a few changes in it. The biggest change is, on the back page, the top paragraph, an employee who has accumulated a minimum of 500 hours may elect to donate unused sick leave to an employee with a life-threatening illness or life-threatening circumstance with the approval and consent of the council. Now, we know that a year and a half ago or whatever, we had some very, very gracious employees that donated time to two employees that had life-threatening circumstances and illnesses, and but what's come to light over a period of time is people that are accumulating them are sometimes giving hours to people that have other employees that have just used up their time, and we would like to see this be used only for major illnesses. And I also really strongly recommend that we have approval and consent of the council and the mayor, that they can't just do that without asking. I think it should be a case by case, and that way it's not being, it could be abused very, very easily the way it was before, that they could just give time to anybody for any reason, if they had 500 hours built up. And there was nothing we could do about it because we had no policy. Yes, sir?
I agree 100% on that. I do have a question. Maybe you're gonna address it now. You've got compensation will only be allowed for a maximum of 500 accumulated hours. So, does that mean that if someone worked for the city for 15 or 20 years and they had 600 hours, how many hours of sick leave would they get?
No, they can,
That's
they
saying
can,
after, what they're getting paid back.
it's what they're getting paid back.
Yeah, but, well, how many hours would you get paid back?
500 is
I'm retiring, I've got 600 hours
Oh,
of,
no, this is,
accumulated hours. I've worked between 17 years, so how many hours am I gonna get paid for, is what I'm asking.
some of that is contractual.
Okay.
So we don't have a choice about some of that.
Okay.
This lower section, truthfully, probably
Non-contractual
these are gonna be
employees.
more non-contractual clauses for the spot.
Okay,
That is
okay.
not non-contractual for the employee that's accumulated minimum 500 hours to be able to donate hours. That can be to a contractor, it can be to a person that is under union contract. But what we want to make sure is that it's happening for life-threatening illnesses or
Okay,
circumstances.
and I agree with that 100%, so.
Okay.
What you're basically saying is, if they're not in the union with the contract, then this is what you go by.
That is correct.
So with that scenario, I'd get 50% of the accumulated sick time, which I had 600 hours, so I'd get paid for 300 hours.
Half of 500.
On half of 500.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you, I understand it
Okay.
now, Ms.
Yes,
Thickhead,
ma'am.
but
I have a question. Are you establishing any limit of the number of hours after 500 hours that somebody can donate or no?
We haven't. Did you hear that, Sandra? She said, are we,
Is there
if they
any
have
limit?
500 hours, are we putting a limit on how many they can give? If it's approved by the council? I don't think so.
No limit? Is that
Well,
the
in a
plan?
prime example, we had two employees that, one had a really life-threatening illness and one was in a life-threatening situation.
Yeah.
And we had many employees that had lots and lots of hours that donated. That was wonderful. I mean, I applaud them. It helped both of those young men out. But what we're really trying to address is not those life-threatening things, but people that could be abusing the system by just using all their hours and saying, well, somebody will give me some.
Yeah.
That has to be approved by the council now.
Yeah, and I agree with that. That's
Okay,
fine.
is
I
that
just
the-
was wondering if
They
when
can
you
give
have
all
the-
their hours if they want.
All the hours after 500. With
After
500 the
500.
limit, or
They have to have a
go
minimum
below?
of 500 to give any away.
But they
Oh,
can
okay.
give all of it.
They
They
can
can
donate
give
the
all their whole
500.
500
Okay,
if they want it.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
What's so those are that paragraph is the change to the old policy?
That
And
and
the
this
percentages?
last paragraph on the, other page was an add-on. That was not in there before. A regular and reliable attendance is essential requirement of employment of the city. It is a policy of the city that after exhaustion of accrued days off, an employee will not be permitted to take additional days off in advance of accruing further days. At one time, they were able to borrow, and we have, the mayor stopped that some years ago, was never put into a policy. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yep.
Okay. Failure to
Okay.
be at work is not authorized absence, so on.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes.
Well, I guess I maybe have a little bit of problem with, I don't have a problem with the statement, but it doesn't seem like it really fits in a sick leave policy. The regular and reliable attendance is essentially a requirement of employment.
Well, see, they were borrowing.
Well, I'm not opposed to that, but I don't know why you need that sentence in the sick leave policy. I mean, can't you
Look at
say
that,
it's the
Richard. What
policy?
did you think?
Can't you say it's the policy that,
Well, yeah, I think it does apply to all time, not just sick leave. I agree with that.
I mean, you can still have, it's a policy that you can't borrow your sick days, which it says. I just think that
Yeah,
other.
that is correct.
I think that first sentence is kind of unnecessary and as part of that policy.
So you're recommending we take regular and that first sentence off?
I am, yes.
Okay. Any other comment? Sandra, you're okay with that, aren't you? I think we talked about that actually when we were doing this.
Mr. Blake, I'm not sure if you
Yeah,
were.
Mr. Blake, do you have any, qualms about taking that first?
No, no, I
sentence
think
off?
that's fine.
Okay.
I think John made a good point.
Yeah, thank you, John. Anything else? if everybody is comfortable with this, unless you want to, you know, spend some more time looking at it, and we could put it on next time, but if you're comfortable with this, I would entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries. And again, we are going to continue to work on just updating this 1999 policy. We may at some point be bringing it to you in sections. We may wait till we're all done. It kind of depends on, Sandra and I are trying to work each week for an hour or two on updating it. As far as I know, there's no other new business unless someone has anything personal. Public comment for personnel. I think we can come out of that, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. That takes us to the mayor's report. I got several items here. First, we have some communication from the Murphysboro Hometown Christmas Group that they asked that I share. In particular, this letter is addressed to the Public Works, Police, or Street, Water, and Wastewater. It says, on behalf of the Murphysboro Hometown Christmas Committee, which is a subcommittee of Murphysboro Main Street, we want to thank the Public Works for their gracious contribution to making our second year a fantastic success. Each year we gain valuable experience in providing a tree lighting event that is something Murphysboro can be proud of, and a tradition both our families and visitors alike will treasure. And they hope that you will continue to support their efforts, and they once again just want to greatly thank the Public Works Department, and they sent me some photos here. I'll send a couple one way and a couple the other of the guys helping to decorate the tree and get it put up. I noticed just this week that it disappeared out of the park, and so we thank them for all their efforts, and they wanted to make sure they communicate. Mr. Mills, do you want to say anything in regard to? All right. Moving on, I've thought about this next item all day, and I really don't know how to present it exactly, because I mean, it's in a sense I would like to go, and in a sense I also don't want the city council to feel any obligation either. There is a group that I've been meeting with. It's just sort of an informal group in a sense that's made up of leaders from Southern Illinois Healthcare, from the city of Carbondale, from Southern Illinois University, and they invited me to start meeting with them about a year and a half ago, and they did just meet 3 times a year. And it's essentially a group that's working to advocate on behalf of the university and, you know, the communities in the county. Last year, that group went to Washington, D.C. for several days, set up meetings with Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth, Congressman Bost, other officials that are on infrastructure committees, rural issue committees, and things of this nature. They asked me to go along with them, and of course, you know, it would be at the city's expense. I think these things can be certainly fruitful to an extent, and I wouldn't want it to be just a, you know, a junket in a sense. So anyway, I put that on the table for your consideration. Those are the dates. One of the things I don't like about it is it seems like I'm constantly asking the city council to move city council dates around, and that the 9th is that Tuesday, and so I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air about it, but I wanted to put it on the agenda. Mr. Bragg.
Well, I think Mr. Urbis could cover for you while you're gone. We wouldn't have to change the date unless you just wanted to change.
I'll be gone that day, so. I'm getting married and I'll be gone that day.
Okay, well, that's a pretty good
Are you going to
excuse.
D.C. too?
No, I'm going to Arizona.
Yeah.
Well, that really is a pretty good reason to be gone.
He pulled it out really quick. I got a tendency maybe to believe him on that.
Well, I think you better have that date dedicated to memory.
Yeah. What kind of dollars are we talking about, Mayor?
You know, I
knew I was
haven't-
going to ask that.
No, I mean, it's a legitimate question. I assume you would be talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,500 by the time a round trip airfare and a couple of days of hotels. I wouldn't ask for any per diem. I don't want any money for food. I don't want to turn in any receipts. I would just ask for airfare and lodging.
Uber?
What's that?
Uber?
Uber?
You will need Uber.
Cabs are pretty pricey out there.
Well,
I can give you some extra.
you know,
But yeah, I mean, a hotel in DC is about $350 a night.
mm-hmm.
It depends where you are. So it's about $1,500.
Well, it would be 2 nights, the 9th and the 10th, and, be coming back on the 11th.
And that is a cheap hotel, Mayor.
If you can get a flight back on the 11th.
I mean, I can sleep on the subway. I've seen it done.
You wouldn't be by yourself.
No, I wouldn't.
You got a cane and a cup?
Yes.
I'm gonna tell him you said that.
Well, if you think this.
Do you think it's gonna be beneficial to the city? I mean, or are you gonna pick up enough knowledge that's gonna be beneficial? I mean, I know that I've got a reputation of being pretty close with the dollar, but sometimes you gotta look a little farther down the road, you know what I'm trying to say.
I think it's important in the fact that so much of our, I don't know when the last time either one of our U.S. senators was in Murphysboro. I mean, maybe they have been at like an event at 17th Street or something. But when it comes to the 127 expansion, I think that highlighting that could have some importance. I think being somebody to just sort of echo the importance of SIU, because I tell people all the time, we have over 400 people that work at SIU that live in the 62966 zip code. And so probably half of those maybe even live inside city limits. So sort of echoing and adding to their voice, it's not something I would certainly ask to be an every year thing, but I think there could be some value. I mean, I don't know when the last time Murphysboro essentially lobbied. I mean, that's essentially what this is.
I'd make a motion to let you go, Will, at the city's expense for the flight and the rooms.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate your willingness to allow me to go, and I'll try to make it as
Mayor?
productive as possible.
We need to change the
Please
dates.
remind them that Murphysboro is not unknown. We have 17th Street, and the president was here.
Right.
So they know how to fly around.
That may not go too good with a couple of those cats.
Ms. Ripley.
So does that mean we're moving the meetings to the
Mhm.
3rd and 5th?
I have no issue moving to the 3rd, and does that work for the council?
John, can you make that?
What's the
I'll be
date?
gone then too. I'm driving.
You and Danny going on vacation?
No.
Danny Boss.
Danny Boss. No.
So we have 5 weeks.
All right, well,
Could be the 16th and the 30th, is that what you're saying?
15th and 30th?
No,
Is that what-
16 and 30. Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Oh, he's second.
Who made the motion? WJ?
WJ and Mike, second.
All right, so that's to move the meetings to the 16th and 30th. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have an update. I won't go in much detail here, but I just want to say that we had a very productive meeting this morning with the new manager of Mobile Ranch and with the police chief, street and water, Eric Blaine, were there, as well as the city attorney, to go over a myriad of issues that are ongoing there, and I think that we are seeing great progress. The new manager said that they are bringing in 4 roll-off dumpsters. They have obtained the title work to 6 more of the trailers that are in deplorable condition, and that they are going to get to work on tearing those down and continuing to clean up there. And I believe them, and I think we're going to see some more progress.
Good.
So that's definitely positive. And now, I wish we had somebody here to give a drum roll. update on the settlement agreement regarding the Brown Shoe Factory. Mr. Blake.
Well, we do finally have the settlement document signed by Carol Holman. So we have the settlement agreement, which has already been approved by the city, to be signed by the mayor tonight. And we will see when it approves Mr. Rawson's bid. The other contractor withdrew any interest in the project that Ms. Holman and her attorney was working on. So it approves, it is Rawson's bid.
Rawson?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it will be now whenever Rawson can come in and get the work done. Under the contract, he's not paid until the work's completed, so he's got the incentive to get it done as soon as he can.
There's no timeline on it then?
No, I will check with them and see when Rawson is projecting when the work done.
All right.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
I mean, how, can we just leave that on the agenda for the next meeting anyway?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Just
yeah.
because it's
Old
become
time's
so
sake.
dear to our heart.
And we may as well, because I want an update on the work.
They're gonna take them bricks to the mayor's yard.
I hope so. All right, that's the update there. A couple other things I have here. I was given a communication from Angelo Farino, who is head of the St. Patrick's Day celebration, just reminding everyone that if you'd like to participate in that, please be there on Saturday, March the 16th. The parade gets underway at about 10:30. Most of you know where to line up there on 7th Street. Goes to 18th on Walnut. So
We can get a number, how many people is gonna show up, we'll know how much time they can do it.
yeah, and so if you could, if you plan on being there, does anybody here know for sure you'll be here? John,
As far as I know, yeah.
WJ. Okay.
I'm planning on it.
Okay, so that's 5. And
We made it through pretty well last year with what candy we had, didn't we?
yeah, I mean, so much of the St. Patrick's Day parade depends on the weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can't wait.
Right.
I'll probably go over to Marion next week sometime and pick up the candy.
Okay. Thank you for being our parade coordinator as well, Mr. McComb. I always appreciate that very much. Ms. Ripley, do you want to speak to this flyer for the trivia night?
Our Relay for Life team is hosting a trivia night next Friday, March 8th. Love to have you guys get a table together. It's not responsible.
I'm gonna try to get to work on this, all right?
You can sponsor the table.
I just bought one, but I'll go in.
Okay. That's the sponsor.
We could use that.
Yeah.
Be cheating.
Yeah, I brought that up last time, if we wanna, City of Murphysboro Council do a table,
I'll see. Is that a motion?
if you wanna make it official, yeah.
Does everybody want to spot the city, everybody put 20 in, sponsor a table?
Or are we putting 20 in out of our own pocket, or are we making a motion to spend the taxpayers' money here?
I thought we should do like we do the golf outings and everybody put 20 in, but I don't care.
How much is a table, 100 or 200?
How much is the table?
$100
So
for
just
teams of
be-
8.
$10 bucks?
$10
Be
bucks,
10
not
bucks.
20, yeah.
Mhm.
He's generous.
I'll
How much is the
rob my
table?
grandkids.
$100.
$100 is $10 for each one of them? Yeah.
I think I'm already playing on it.
Gloria's collecting the money too.
No, I am not.
I know all of
I'm
them.
just keeping the money.
All right, folks, I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna pay for a table, and anybody who wants to show up and pay me to offset the cost, we'll just handle it that way. How's that? Because it doesn't sound like we're gonna make a motion on that. All right. And then also, I think these, your annual economic entrance.
Oh, yes. If you guys wanna fill those out tonight, hand it back to me.
All right, do we have a need for an executive session this evening? I don't believe that we do. Praise the Lord. And we'll go to council member requests. I'll start with Ms. Hughes.
I have nothing, thank you.
Ms. Curry-Witzman,
I have nothing.
Mr. Brown,
Nothing.
Mr. Voss,
Nothing to do.
Mr. McComb,
No, nothing at this time.
Clerk Hunziker?
No.
Mr. Urbis?
I do, a resident asked me about condition of some of the property on the north side of Industrial Park Road. There's been a fire in one building. Is that city property?
No.
I thought that wasn't city property, but I just wanted to.
And they started tearing it down today, Bob Ellis did.
Oh, did they? Okay. There's several that need torn down there, but.
We responded to that fire as usually the MPS.
Okay. Is the south side's in the city, right? But not the north side. That's what I thought. That's what I told them, but I wasn't sure, so thank you.
All right, Mr. Bratton?
I'll pass.
Mr. Bastian?
Pass.
Ms. Campos?
Two things. I think tomorrow night we have at the Murphysboro High School at 6 p.m. the meeting that Ms. Grody invited us. But also at the same time at 6 p.m. at 5:30, there is an invitation to have the Jackson County Alliance, is it Alliance? Growth Alliance, and they're gonna have the developer and show the plan to the city also at 6 p.m.
That's at the Elks.
It's at the Elks. They have a happy hour too.
I think
But
high
The
school.
school was last night.
week.
The school was last
Oh,
week.
last week was high
Yeah.
school?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it then.
I guess so.
Sorry, don't go to that this week. I was like, oh my God. I
Happy,
haven't-
happy, happy, happy hour, she said.
So happy hour tomorrow at 5:30 is important for us to show. But at the same time, last week it was last week when we had the event at the Civic Center, no?
It was the week before that.
Yeah. Oh, don't do that. There was something that I saw over there in the plan, and somehow we have that in our city. I think it's ordinance, and it's about maintenance of existing housing. And one of the items that they have a bullet point is high standards of maintenance of existing housing in Murphysboro. And probably that might be something that we as a council would like to embrace and work on. You know, I don't wanna say much, but that blue house, you know, colors that they are pleasant to the eye. Is there something as a council that we can do about it?
Well, I'm not sure if I follow exactly. You know, there's a difference source between building standards and, you know, aesthetic standards. And so.
They're both, let's combine them. Yeah, I mean, it has to look good, you know, but something with the colors, there is a greenhouse that is almost falling apart and it's being rented, and it is on Pine Street and I think 19.
I mean, this comes back a lot to the, you know, concept of, you know, of more involved rental inspection thing that which we.
I am in his ward, he's complaining.
She's been riding around my ward all day, I saw
I am
her.
around all town, you know, I'm on a
It is
muscle.
green, it's been green
It is
for years.
for years, yes, but I'm talking about those colors. Can we do that as a council and there is a bright blue, like I saying these colors are.
I don't think we can tell people what color to paint their house.
No. They can do that if you're in a historical section of town, if it's approved that way, I think.
Okay.
On some of, yeah, but that gets really, you don't wanna go there.
No.
Well, just trust
It's
me
like
on one
a,
thing.
no, boy,
Trust me on one
trust
thing.
me with the trash can too. No? Okay, so never mind, but then tomorrow night is that one, important 5:30 happy hour.
All right, Mr. Pittman? If I could just remind the council, and I have to do this more often than I wish, at all points during the meeting, whenever somebody has the floor, they have the floor to address the council in the room. And I don't mind a little bit of side chatter, but it seems to just go on and on and on. So please respect one another when other members of the council have the floor. Thank you. Mr. Blake, Ms. Ripley, Mr. Evans, Mr. Sheffer, Chief McBride.
Been a busy week and a half for the fire department, 3 house fires, a lot of EMR calls. The guys worked their hind end off. A couple of them were basement fires. Those are really public information, public education grant. We'll use it to purchase, our current Sparky suit was purchased by Chris Morber out of his pocket because he wanted to do things in the schools and that type of thing. It's getting very soiled. It's not an official mascot according to powers that be. So we will be purchasing a new official Sparky mascot suit. We didn't quite get enough to do it, so we'll find some money. The FFI has indicated they might kick in some toward that, so should be able to get that done as well. Going out.
Thank you very much, Chief. Chief Ellermeyer?
Yeah, last week and a half, we made a couple arrests on people that have been shooting their weapons off in the city limits. One had an AR-15 out of Mobile Branch. The other one was in town up on 19th Street, where you guys probably have seen on Facebook, where we have had calls over the last couple of months, 3 or 4 times at least, where somebody called in the neighborhood and shots fired. And we made an arrest on that one also late last week, and found that subject was the one that did the prior shots fired also. Brianna Hanks started a new telecommunicator Monday. Seems to be doing well the first couple days, and she'll be on a 12-week training process, and then we'll go from there.
And just for the sake of, I think it's worth noting, the individual on 19th Street wasn't shooting at anyone.
No, neither one, the incident where anybody was shooting at anybody in specific, just having some issues and making a bad decision.
All right. Mr. Mills? Mr. Manwaring? Mr. Kennedy? Mr. Stewart? All right. Anybody else for the good of the order? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll just pick 2 people today.
Yeah.
8:06.
Yes, sir.
You don't get a little shit on your nose after something wrong.